She got her daddy's car and she cruised to the hamburger stand now.
Hey everybody, it's Randy Cardoon, and welcome to another edition of Talking About Cars. Everybody has a car story, even Richard Carpenter of the singing Carpenters. His love of cars is so deep, he used his own cars on some of the Carpenters' album covers and keeps most of them in a warehouse in the Conejo Valley. Where did his love of classic American cars come from?
I inherited the love for automobiles from my dad, and of course I happened to grow up at a great time in history. You know, America was feeling her oats. Television was coming into being. The automobiles were something else. The auto companies, to set themselves apart, came up with all sorts of different designs and features. And back then, even people who didn't know much about cars could tell the difference between a Ford, a Chevy, and a Plymouth. And it was just the perfect time to be growing up if you were into automobiles. 50s into the 60s. Unfortunately, then we got into the 70s. Yeah. But now it's back.
Take me back to when you were growing up back in Connecticut. What were the first cars you remember your folks had?
When I was born, they'd gotten it right before you weren't allowed to buy new automobiles because of the war effort. So they had a 41 Dodge. And then they bought a used 40s. After that, a used 47 Chrysler. After that, a used 51 Chrysler. After that, the used 56 Dodge. And then the used 60 Dodge. And then our first new car was the Plymouth Satellite, 1965.
When you made the trip, they decided you were going to come out to California. Do you remember what the car was, and do you have any good car stories from the trip?
Well, the first time, Dad just he really wanted to come out here. He didn't like the weather back there. And so we made the trip. Karen didn't enjoy traveling as much as I did, auto trips and all. It would have been a long one, you know. And so she stayed with some relatives in Baltimore, and then I was with Mom and Dad, and we drove across the country. That was June of 1960. Of course, I got to see Disneyland. They'd recently opened the Matterhorn, and that was in our 56 Dodge, with no air conditioning, of course.
Really?
So, you know, you'd go.
What time of year was this?
It was June.
Oh, wow.
But boy, when you hit Arizona, it was hot as Hades. But, you just put the windows down and suffered through it. Then when we made the actual trip to move, that was in 63 again, I want to say June, and that was in our 60 Dodge Polara. I can't think, other than looking back, like when I saw the film Cars, the Pixar film, of course they romanticized the whole thing, but that's the way you look back at it. Route 66 and all the different looking motels and coffee shops. We had driving along, not everything was interstate, and a lot of it was not interstate. And you had the Burma-Shave signs and the barns that were painted with chew mail pouch tobacco and all these different coffee shops and motor lodges. It was fun.
Tell me you stayed in a wigwam in Arizona somewhere.
No.
Okay.
Oh, I'd pester them. I mean, because you'd see these signs and X amount of miles or whatever, the new or the blah, blah, blah. But we went, they had a certain amount of time to get out here in 60, because he had to be back, Dad, to go back to work. So we couldn't do it leisurely. So you went X amount of miles, you had the AAA make out a triptych for you, and then when it was the time of day to say, well, maybe we should rest, you picked out what was available, not whether it looked like a rocket ship or a wigwam or anything.
Do you remember what your favorite fast food place was back then?
Well, see, we'd never seen an A&W restaurant before. They didn't have those back east. A lot of these places were really just little, not even country stores, but they'd have the big chest with the the ice thrown in there with the Coca-Cola and Hires root beer or A&W, and it was freezing cold. It was just wonderful.
What was your high school car, the first car you owned?
It was a 57 Plymouth Savoy. I wanted a Belvedere big time, and this was 62. And, of course, back east, every one of them had rotted out. We found this one that wasn't, which was a Savoy and a 4-door hardtop, not a 2, but, you know, beggars can't be choosers. So that was my first. We left that back east when we sold it and moved. And then out here, I got a 56 Chevy Bel Air 2-door hardtop.
White and gypsy red?
Yeah. I can't remember the term for their white. It wasn't shoreline beige, it was white. So it was the red with white. And
2-door, 4-door?
2-door, yeah.
That was a car to have in California.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I found that. Because I was still really more of a Chrysler guy. Plymouth or DeSoto, that was the thing. When you're a car buff and you come from the East Coast and you've seen them all rot out, and then we come out here and hear all these used car lots with these Chevys, Plymouths, DeSotos, Fords that look like they just came off the showroom floor. No rust, you know. It was kind of frustrating to somebody who didn't have the money to see all of these automobiles that you couldn't find back east. But that's the way it worked out.
You look back at all the cars you've had, and you've gone through a few, I'm sure. You have a lot here in the showroom here, which we'll talk about in a moment. But is there ever a car that got away that you wish you could have back?
Oh, yeah, there are a few. Well, just the one I was telling you about, the 64 Polara 500. I just made a mistake and sold it, and I wish I had it back. But I'd have to give that some thought, but, you know, we all have those stories.
Yes, we do.
So,
do you remember why you got rid of the 64 Polara?
I thought we were getting a little bit crowded out here, and that was pretty much it. It was a wonderful car, and you know, I lost big time on it. Not that I restore these cars if they need restoration, because I want them it's not a business thing. My God, that would be one of the worst business ventures, trying to figure out what car is going to be worth. Yes, exactly. They're just cars that I wanted, you know.
Well, that's a good point, though. You were talking about why is it you have the cars here in the store, in the showroom. You have, let's just say, roughly 25 to 35 cars, a lot of American makes, a lot of Chryslers, a lot of Mopars. What's your thought pattern as to why you chose one over another?
Even if we hadn't been a Chrysler family, when especially the 57s came out, I mean, they're just, they are, certain models of them, absolutely beautiful. So, you know, if I'd been a Chevy person, I would have just wanted one of the Dodges or DeSotos or all, because they're just beautiful cars, the coupes and convertibles. But there are other cars, the 55 Thunderbird that the 57 6 and 7 Continental Mark II. Now back there, they only made a handful of those, you know, I think a little over 3,000. I never saw one back east, you know. The mecca for automobiles is Southern California.
Of the cars in here, you had a 60 Polara, you had several other cars that were similar to what you have in here. I always say that as a car guy, you got to have like your first car. You got to have your high school car. Is that some of the stories behind these?
Well, the Satellite would have been our Plymouth Satellite, because we bought that in February of 1965. Now, let's see. I was my first year of college at the time. So my high school car, I said, was the Chevy, the 56 Chevy. Then I had to have, pester, I wanted a Corvair Monza Spider. which is a big mistake.
Well, we were kids.
My parents were nice enough to secure a loan so that they could buy the thing on time for me. And by the time I'd purchased it, my parents purchased it, it had already blown out. The turbocharger didn't work on it. They're troublesome cars. So that got traded on the Plymouth, on the satellite.
Shockingly, I don't see a Corvair in here.
No, I didn't. But another point I was thinking of is that, again, growing up in America, especially, and being an auto buff, the 60s was a marvelous time. And you just think about what was available for 63. You had the Stingray, first year was 63, the Avanti, the Riviera. You had the Thunderbird Sports Roadster. You had any number of the Grand Prix. The Pontiac Grand Prix is an absolutely gorgeous car.
You have the Grand Prix.
I have the Grand Prix.
You have the Thunderbird.
I do. I have the Riviera. I have the Avanti and the Stingray. It just took a while to get them. But, we were fortunate enough to be born with the talent that we were and to end up with a number of hit records and a heck of a career. And this is some people want, they gamble, some people have yachts who have the means, some they play the ponies. My thing is automobiles.
Is there a car out there that you don't have yet that you really want?
Oh, there are a number.
You have your list?
No, I should have brought a list.
I was going to say, I joke sometimes when somebody asks me that, and I say, well, it's on this itty-bitty card, and it's like 20 cars. How many cars are on your list?
Oh, have to be 20.
Yeah?
Well, I would, if I gave it some thought, yeah. People see this collection, other car guys, we never see these cars. Like the 58 Dodge. It seems like a lot of collectors, here are the 100 cars that you're supposed to collect. And that's what's there, which is fine and dandy. But there are certain cars, as I said, growing up, like that Regal Answer, the 58 Dodge. I wanted one of those, the 58 Imperial. Not what most people would say that's what they want for their auto collection. So I have some cars that are really, really rare because they really were when they were new. Like I would like a pristine, honest 65 Coronet 500. Hard, pillowless coupe, hard top. Not things that are actually worth a small fortune, but you're probably not going to find because most people, I'm sure there's one out there somewhere, but
I was looking at one of your album covers, and I noticed a Ferrari.
Yeah.
And I got to ask, because it looks awfully close.
Yeah.
It's off the album cover.
Yeah, 365 GTB for Now and Then. I don't particularly like the cover because they shot it, and the vent window cuts Karen's face in half because of the way they took it. I just think it's... And, I look pissed off, which I was, because I thought they could have come up with a better idea for an album cover than us driving down the street. But the thing is, if you look at it and you think about it, we got any number of fan letters about the new album and the Pinto that we're driving at. And think about it,
Pinto.
How many people have ever seen a Ferrari Daytona, and if they've seen it, would know what it is? And if you look at the cover, it kind of, the way it goes, curves down in the back and all. I know it shows a little wire wheel there, but I can see where people would, because it was far more than one about the Pinto,
I will never look at a Ferrari Daytona the same way again. And then there was, as time goes by, you guys were in a convertible. You remember what that?
Satellite. That's the Plymouth. Oh, yeah.
So you actually had the Ferrari back then, obviously, and then, of course, you've had the Plymouth the whole time.
And I had the Plymouth the whole time.
So where did the idea came up to put those cars in the cover art?
It was getting time for the new album to come out. We're world famous. We're going to sell millions and millions. That happened to turn out to be a huge album. And the record label just more worried about not the Carpenters and our image, Oh, yeah. Oh, a new album? Oh, yeah, I guess you better take a picture of it. So they showed up and said, why don't you just take it in front of your parents' house? I said, I don't want to do that. Nothing against my parents. I said, that's it? That's what you have in mind for an album that's going to go to #1 and sell millions throughout the world? Is it like my parents would take, a snapshot? Well, let's see. What about if you get in that car and drive it down the street? And that's how it came to be. And that was in March. And in January, I had broken my wrist in a motorcycle accident. And the Daytona comes with manual steering. Steers like a truck. That one's been retrofitted with the power unit off the 365 GTC4. But at the time, I guess no one thought to do that, and it steered like a truck, so I couldn't drive it because my left. So it just sat. If you look at me in that picture, you can tell that I'm ticked off.
So you were actually driving the Ferrari with a broken hand.
Yeah, as long as we went in a straight line, because really the cast was, and I had to wear that sucker. Or a cast, not that one particular one, for 5 months.
No wonder you look pissed off.
Yeah.
I completely understand. That adds a whole new dimension to that album cover now. I've only been able to find 2 car songs in your entire repertoire. I'm sure I missed something, or maybe I didn't, but there was Fun. Yeah. And then you did Dead Man's Curve.
Right.
And was there anything else I missed?
I don't think so. They weren't done because really they were car songs. I always got a kick out of some of the tragic songs, if you will, like Leader of the Pack, and Dead Man's Curve, the kind of post-mortem. And there's a sound effect of a car crashing. It's more than that, though, and it's a particular one. There was a hit in 1956 by Norvis called Transfusion. So when it came time to do the auto rec for Dead Man's Curve in our version of it, and I think they used it in the original, too, we went to the A&M Records studios sound library, and they had Car Screeching Accident. And I said, that's not it. That's not the one I've heard. The one I've heard has a...
We talked a lot about the cars that are here. In your regular garage, what do you drive normally?
A Porsche Carrera S and a Porsche Cayman S. And then I just purchased a BMW i8, the new...
Oh, yeah.
Hybrid. Not that I want it because it's a hybrid. I just like the way it looks and the way it drives. They've described, they're not gull-wing doors. They're either scissor or swan doors. And you kind of, it's low. And if you've had any experience with an E-type Jaguar, it's kind of like getting into that. You have to turn yourself sideways and drop your tuchus and swing your legs around. But it's a lovely driving car. And then I have a 2005 Honda S2000. They're a gorgeous design, and they are a riot to drive, and probably the neatest gearbox that I can think of.
So when the DMV bill comes around, how many cars do you have total? Any idea?
No, to answer your question. I think there are around 37 collector cars. Well, and then, I have a few, and Mary had, my wife has hers, and then the kids, and
Your kids at all into any of the collector cars? Or?
I say I got it from my dad, but it's obviously skipping at least one generation. What a legacy, and they couldn't care less. You're either born with that, like anything else, or you're not. I heard someone say once, all men are into cars. Baloney! No, they're not. Most people aren't. Other than it's something, it's a conveyance. Get them from here to there. Which actually, I wish I were like, it saved me a lot of dough and headaches, but no.
It's a sickness, but you know something? It's more fun than anything else.
Well, it probably is. Yeah, I agree with that.
Richard Carpenter of the Carpenters. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And I'm Randy Cardoon. Join me next time as we have some fun talking about cars.